DJ Scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Hood rich.
Get it out the mud.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And welcome back. It's nice not having to wait another 4 weeks in between each podcast, but welcome back. We are back here just after, I guess we did the last podcast on Friday, but we are back with some more appetizers for you, And I'm talking about UFC 327. Procházka versus Ulberg, which was this past Saturday, and that was at the Casillas Center in Miami, Florida, United States, and the attendance was 17,741, and the total gate was 6.5 million. So, as per usual, the UFC always doing pretty well in those in those categories, but overall, I believe that UFC 327 Procházka versus Ulberg, I think it lived up to the billing, and I think it was. I think you could definitely say it ended up being just as good as UFC Seattle, which was about just a couple weeks ago, but it was just a fight night. So I feel like this. I don't really want to say that it's better, but it had just as much excitement and drama. And I think maybe what maybe helped it a little bit is that it was a numbered card, and you did have a title changing hand, and you had looked like possibly some title eliminator bouts with how some of those matches went in the light heavyweight division leading up to this. But I thought this was a great card, and we'll definitely get into all of it. But let's see, before we get into the main card and our picks and predictions, methods, all that, let's talk a little bit about the prelims, and then the prelim standard and early, and then we'll get into that. So on the early prelims, you had some kind of interesting stuff happen in that. Talking about the drama, that was the main event of the prelims. Had about, but it was a catchweight bout, 158 between Chris Padella versus Marquel Medeiros. And originally the fight had a point taken away because Marquel Medeiros, two groin strikes by him, ended up taking a point away. So then when the judges' scorecards came out, it ended up being like 29-27, 29-27, and then there was actually a 28-28 in there, which just made it a majority decision. But then later, when the broadcast was going on, UFC was continued. It came back and was like wanted to note that actually there was a mistake on a scorecard, and then two judges actually thought it was 28-28. So it ended up being a majority draw, and it's just like it seemed like watching that fight, watching it live, it looked like Chris Padella won, just straight up just won 2 rounds, and then got kicked in the groin twice. So it looked like it was clear cut that he had won that fight. But no, they came back and told us that it ended up just being a draw. And if he wouldn't have got kicked in the groin 2 times, I guess he'd have lost. But anyway, so that was just the main event drama for the early prelims, but also had I guess it would be the co-main event, the second fight on the card, UFC 327. But the early prelims, you had a pretty not a very impressive or exciting or really get your gussies going type of performance for Kelvin Gastelum, former middleweight title contender. Looked bad against Vincent Laquid. Couldn't land anything on him. Wasn't able to finish any type of takedowns on him. And then Vince Laquid literally like hung one of his legs out there on this submission that ended up happening to basically like baiting Kelvin Gastelum. Gastelum ended up trying to go for that shot to try to get a hold of that leg, and instead Vincent Laquid got a hold of his head and got him in an anaconda choke and choked him out at the 4:08 mark of the first round with the submission. So yeah, that was definitely not a really exciting performance or really confidence building performance by Kelvin Gastelum. I'd be perfectly fine with retirement after something like that. But yeah, so as you can see, there's already drama on this card from start to finish. Definitely from start to finish. There was a climax at the finish of this event. That's what made it so great. And then onto the standard prelims. You had a nice, impressive win by Tatiana Suarez in the women's strawweight over Lupi Godinez, and both of them that could lead to a title shot for coming into this fight. It looked like it could be easily a title shot if either one of these women had like an impressive performance, because I think both of them were in top 10, I think originally is what I said coming into this fight. They were both ranked top 10, but it was more like top 7 because one of them was like ranked 7 and one was ranked 4 now. But yeah, Tatiana Suarez had an impressive performance against Lupi Godinez and ended up finishing her at the 2:29 mark of the second round with a submission rear naked choke. So that was good. And then Mateus Gamrot had an impressive performance. Well, there's a lot of submissions on this card, which is a little bit nice change, But Mateus Gamrot won his fight by arm triangle choke at the 4:19 mark of the second round over Esteban Ribovics. And then welterweight, kind of fan favorite bout, welterweight bout between Kevin Holland versus Randy Brown, and that ended up just being a 30-27, 30-27, 30-27 decision victory by Kevin Holland. But I didn't think he like dominated him or was ever even close to like finishing him or like stopping him or anything. But yeah, I guess you'd say that he won, but I don't know. People seem to love and think all the trash talking and silly stuff that he says and does like during the fight. Like people think that's so funny or whatever. I don't know. When you're not winning, and really beating a guy up, it's not quite as exciting or entertaining or fun. But yeah, so Kevin Holland, fan favorite, won. And then Patricio Pitbull had a very uninspiring performance as well, kind of like Kelvin Gastelum, and both of those guys are pushing 40, so it's I mean it might not shouldn't be like a big surprise, but yeah, Aaron Patricio Pitbull looked terrible against Aaron Pico. Couldn't land anything, couldn't execute a takedown or anything, and ended up losing that bout by a pretty dominant. Like he never got close to like getting submitted or knocked out or anything, but just didn't do anything. So that was a 30-27, 30-27, and actually a 29-28. And I don't know how a judge could have given him a round actually. And so that was a three round, 5 minutes, 15-minute round, and I could see Patricio Pitbull getting cut from that, and just like could easily see Kelvin Gastelum get cut from just the very uninspiring performances. All right, so that's the prelims. I said come for like predictions coming into this card that the prelims could have easily been a fight night if you had maybe had a better performance out of Kevin Holland or Patricio Pitbull. You maybe be able to say like, yeah, bar none. But even if it would have been just a fight night, I think it'd have been a little disappointing just because your co-main event and main event weren't like really great. But even with that, you didn't have to worry about it because you still had 5 more fights on the main card. So let's get into this. We had picks and methods. We didn't go with round or time really, but we went with picks and method, and I think I fared okay. Okay, I think I would have been happier to do a little bit with the methods, but we'll get into it. So, can I get a menu? And so the first fight on the card, the classic curtain jerker, and this is like a swan song retirement bout for Cub Swanson. That's what it was, clearly, and that's what I thought it was. Build up is serving up Nate Landwehr to him as like, hey, this is your retirement bout, your farewell fight. We're trying to give you an easy one, a guy that matches up perfectly with what you do, how you fight, and is shown that his chin is a little suspect in his past two fights, losing by TKO and knockout. But so the first fight on the card, you had a featherweight bout between Cub Swanson versus Nate Landwehr. And it's obviously with all fights, they start standing up and you just kind of get in a filling out process between Cub Swanson and Nate Landwehr. And Cub Swanson maybe took like maybe one or two hits from Nate Landwehr and realized that he had nothing for him. And then Cub Swanson just started unloading on Nate Landwehr with combinations and ripping hard shots to the body until he had Nate Landwehr basically just like wilting up against the cage. And before you know it, he's trying to uh, double leg Herb Dean in the ring and gets TKO punches at the 406 mark of the first round. And hey, I was waiting for the promo package, the retirement package, like video, like the last couple ones that they've had for like Robbie Lawler and Michael Chiesa and Smith. Smith, his first name's uh, uh, escaping me at the moment, but Smith, all their retirement videos were at the beginning of the fight, if I remember correctly. So when he didn't have one, I was like, man, maybe they're not billing this up quite as much as I thought they were for his retirement. But they had one. They had a retirement promo package for him at the end of the fight and had him shove off. Farewell is what it ended up being. And man, you could almost you didn't see Nate Landwehr hanging around like Nico Price a couple weeks ago after he got uh, choked out and was saying beforehand that he was wanting to retire. But you could easily put Nate Landwehr as maybe he may be deciding or thinking about retiring after that, but they didn't want to talk to him. All right, so now then on to the second fight on the card. We have a light heavyweight bout between Dominic Reyes versus Johnny Walker. And this was billed up kind of as, you have an impressive performance by Dominic Reyes or you have an impressive outing by Johnny Walker. Maybe they might be in line for whoever wins the vacant light heavyweight belt on this card. But because Dominic Reyes had just lost to Carl Ulmbridge off of like a 3-fight winning streak where he was not TKOing and knocking everyone out. And that if he'd have beat Carl Ulmbridge, he'd been the one fighting Jiri Procházka on this card. But, definitely got set back by getting knocked out by Ulmbridge. And then Johnny Walker, we know Johnny Walker is, is historically known for, he's a physical freak and athlete, because he's 6'5", 6'6", probably enters the cage at like 230, 240 pounds. So he's just a freak for the division. But his chin usually doesn't match up, go along with that very well. So I thought Dominic Reyes just got knocked out. We know there's just a book on how many knockouts Johnny Walker's had. So I was definitely thinking like there's no way Dominic Reyes or Johnny Walker don't get knocked out in this fight. And you got pretty much one of the worst fights of 2026 in this fight. They were just so hesitant and reluctant to engage with one another. And like pretty much like I would say Dominic Reyes maybe landed maybe 3, 4 like good shots. And that's about it. And then Johnny Walker actually landed like 30 like leg kicks, like lower calf kicks. So definitely when they got to the decisions, I was thinking maybe Johnny Walker just won this fight off of leg kicks. And I originally had picked Dominic Reyes to win this fight, but I thought it was going to be by knockout. I thought he was going to TKO or Johnny Walker. And I thought he at least looked really mad in this fight, but didn't have any thing to back it. Nothing to no offense behind that face that Dominic Reyes had on for the majority of this fight. So yeah, I actually thought Johnny Walker, at least if we're just going off of scoring points with the 30 calf kicks that he landed, I was thinking Johnny Walker won this, but it ended up being a light heavyweight bout between Dominic Reyes versus Johnny Walker. It ended up being Dominic Reyes winning this by split decision, 29-28, 28-29, and 29-28. Very uninspiring bout, and definitely the worst fight of the night. Other than, I guess you could maybe say, go back to the Chris Padilla, Marquel Mederos fight, but more of just the outcome of that fight. But just Snoozeville about to fall asleep after the impressive performance, the knockout that we got from Cub Swanson, and then you're thinking you're guaranteed to have one in this fight, and no, there was really none of that. But I want to pat myself on the back just a little bit because we talked about how Johnny Walker had been training a little bit more in the takedown game and in his ground game, and how maybe if this fight doesn't go quite as smoothly as he wants to begin with in the striking game, that maybe he'll go for a takedown. And I think it was either late in the second or in the third round where he actually did go. He went for a takedown, tried to go for a double leg, but he was just way too high on it and never could complete it. But it was surprising, you know. Well, it wasn't surprising, kind of predicted it to happen, but that he actually did it. You know, Johnny Walker, that's all we've kind of known him for, is being a striker, kickboxer, and heck. And like I said, it didn't seem as if he was taking a beating. I think he was maybe just trying to do that to steal the round and probably steal the fight if he would have been able to complete that takedown. All right, so let's move on. Let's move away from that fight. And I don't think Dominic Reyes or Johnny Walker should be in title contention or conversation for a while after that. All right, now then, on to the third fight on the card. We have a heavyweight bout between Josh Hokit versus Curtis Blades. And so this bout was built up just because of all the personalities and the characters that Josh Hokit was putting on. And, you know, obviously there's some people that like it, and then there's some people that don't like it. And me personally wasn't a huge fan of it, but mainly just because he's like trying to like copy. I'm a pro wrestling fan, been a pro wrestling fan since I was like, I don't know, like 7 years old. So seeing him trying to like copy like Ric Flair or Macho Man Randy Savage or The Rock, I don't know. I just wasn't loving it, and then I wasn't loving the fact that, man, he's kind of a small heavyweight, and a little soft in the middle. Because so I could easily have seen, I could see him, if he put in enough work, I could easily see him cut down to light heavyweight and just, you know, being 30 pounds lighter and what, 3 or 4 inches shorter than Curtis Blades. I just thought he had a lot going against him in that, but I guess didn't take into account that he is smaller than Curtis Blades, but you know what comes along with that? He's a lot faster. He's about 10 times as fast as Curtis Blades, and early on in this fight, he was just able to move in and move out so quickly early on in this fight that he just busted up Curtis Blades' face that just put a crimson mask on Curtis Blades early on in this fight, but wasn't able to finish him. Impressive chin by Curtis Blades, because he was actually able to come back in this fight and look like at a point in this fight towards the end of like the first round that he was going to finish Josh Hokit. And because of how crazy the fight was and how crazy it had started, I kind of didn't want it to end in the first round, even though I had picked Curtis Blades to win this fight by knockout. I wanted to see some more of it, basically. And so that fight, it pretty much continued to go like that throughout pretty much the whole fight, just kind of a back and forth to where it looked like, oh man, it looks like he's about done or he doesn't have any gas tank left. But nah, just neither one of them could get them out of there. And Curtis Blades, he went for a couple takedowns attempts a couple times, but coming into this, he even admitted that he thought Josh Hokett was the best wrestler because Josh Hokett just brushed off any type of takedown attempt Curtis Blades attempted. And man, I wish Curtis Blades would have ended up getting the knockout, not just because of my pick, but if he did, I wish he'd have got it in the third round when Josh Hokett was looking a little wobbly, and it came right after he flipped him off. He flipped him off like about half a dozen times in the fight, and then he'd run into a couple punches and look like, man, he's going to get the biggest karma loss ever. Like that's all people are going to remember him for is flipping Curtis Blades off and then getting knocked out right after. But he was able to compose himself and was able to end up taking this fight to decision somehow, unanimous decision somehow. So I originally picked Curtis Blades to win this by knockout, but he wasn't able to do it. But the fact that he was able to not get knocked out himself was pretty impressive with how crazy that fight was. So you had a heavyweight bout between Josh Hokett versus Curtis Blades, and that ended up being a unanimous decision victory for Josh Hokett, 29-28, 29-28, 29-28. That's a by 3 round, 5 minute rounds, 15-minute fight. So, so we had that, and you almost have to sit back and kind of catch your breath after a heavyweight bout like that. But what we're hearing already is they already got a fight for Josh Hokett. I guess the White House, the White House card in like 2 months. 2 months they put the Black Beast on there and Josh Hokett on there now. And man, the Black Beast, man, he looked so slow in his last fight. So the combination of Josh Hokett being so fast as he is and how slow the Black Beast looked in his last fight, I mean, really the only chance that he has, like Black Beast has, I think, in winning that fight is basically if Josh Hokett just runs into a punch. And it could happen. And he hits so hard, I could see it knocking him out. It's happened before where it looks like he's just done. You know, the Black Beast is completely done. And one of the fighters that he's fighting, a younger fighter, or just not the smartest fighter in the world, comes in all crazy thinking they're going to finish him, and then they just run into a big right, and next thing you know, and they're slumped against the cage. So I see that's probably the only way he has a chance of winning that fight. So it seems like it'll be more of the same kind of Josh Hokett against Curtis Blades and going up against a fighter that he's just so much faster than. So I guess hopefully he's able to heal up and be 100% in 2 months after taking such a beating. But yeah, so that was exciting. And like I said, it was crazy to think like we still got Paulo Costa and Asmat Miraskanov and a light heavyweight bout title is still up for grabs from Carlos Ulberg and Jiri Procházka. After seeing that was wild. So yeah, so that was great. So now then, let's move on. So now then, on to the co-main event of the night. We had another light heavyweight bout between Paulo Costa versus Asmat Miraskanov. And man, this fight, you know, billing it up, I think people has Asmat Miraskanov as the favorite because he's coming into this fight at like 8-0, and every win victory he's had has been by stoppage. So you know, I understand it. And then you got Paulo Costa, who's coming up from middleweight. So you know, the first thought would be, oh, he's going to be smaller. Asmat Miraskanov is going to be bigger and stronger than him. That didn't seem to be the case at all. That didn't just a visual. That's not what you'd have got from this fight at all. Just them standing next to each other. Paulo Costa looked like the one that was bigger and stronger in this fight. And Asmat Miraskanov, through the whole fight, did a good job of defending head kicks from Paulo Costa, but he didn't do a very good job of defending kicks to the body. Like Paulo Costa basically chopped Asmat Miraskanov down. in this fight because it came in the third round. So about the 1 minute mark of the third round, Paul Costa goes with the body kick, and then shortly after with goes up high with the head kick. And I guess that head kick hurt. It was actually, I'm trying to think. Yeah, it was actually his left hurt his left arm or his left shoulder, and then that led to Muraskanov not being able to hold his arm up to defend the head kick anymore because of how many kicks he'd taken to it. He took about, I don't know, four or five really strong head kicks, but it was, it was defending it for his arm, but heck, it hurt his arm. And then I guess obviously Paul Costa noticed this and went upstairs with a head kick that was completely undefended. And then next thing you know, you got Asmat Mirskanov just kind of wobbling around, and he just kind of falls down. Looks like he basically just time to give up, go to sleep. I almost look at that as a as a submission almost. That's what it kind of felt like almost, because he wasn't completely out, but he was completely done with the injury and probably trying to still catch his wits about him. But yeah, so you got Paul Costa just literally chopping Asmat Muraskanov down. And this fight I almost got this fight completely correct with the pick and the method, because this fight was close to going to decision. So I picked Paul Costa to win this by decision. I had belief that Paul Costa, because of just the fighters that he's fought at middleweight, he's fought like pretty much title contenders or title champions, guys with the belt. And Asmat Murskanov's been in 8 fights. I understand he was coming up a weight class, but still, you got to take that into account. So he ended up getting even better performance from Paul Costa than I was expecting. So light heavyweight bout, Paul Costa defeats Asmat Muraskanov via way of head kick, TKO, and that's at the 123 mark of the third round. And I don't know, like I said, I just said it how you could almost have looked at that as like a submission, but heck, you could almost look at it as a just a KO, because he didn't have to follow up with any shots after that head kick. But anyways, so this card's not going terrible for me. Coming into the main event, we're 3-1 on the card. I only got the method right on one of the fights with the Cub Swanson retirement party, but not bad, at least on the picks. But anyway, so now it's time. It's time for the main event, UFC 327, Procházka versus Ulberg. So that's a light heavyweight bout for the vacant light heavyweight championship. You had Carl Ulberg versus Jiri Procházka. And this fight, man, it got me complaining a little bit going back to the Paulo Costa fight. Man, if that fight would have maybe gone just maybe 4 more minutes, I'd have got the pick and the method. Well, it looked like early on that I was going to get the pick and the method for this Carl Ulberg Jiri Procházka fight, because I originally picked Jiri Procházka to win this fight and to win it by knockout. And I kind of did the whole coin flip that Jiri Procházka, he either wins his fights by knockout or he gets knocked out. And fair to say that's pretty much exactly what happened in this fight. But we were talking about drama that we had from obviously the Josh Holkett fight and the catchweight bout earlier on the card. Got some drama in this fight because it looked like early on Jiri Procházka was landing some good leg kicks. They were originally at the calf, but then it seemed like it was his back leg. But once he noticed that his leg was hurt, even though it wasn't his front leg, his plant foot, he moved it up. He was savage in regards to moving like the target angle of his kick then, because he started kicking Carl Ulberg like directly in his lead leg, like right in the knee, side of the knee area, even though it looked like earlier in the fight, during kind of just like a strike scramble, or trying to get in the clinch between the two, it looked like his from the vibration and the movement that you saw, like snap like a rubber band in his calf, and seeing his calf moved up, it looked like it was an ACL tear to me. But during the interviews, Carl Ulmbridge was saying it was his knee. But regardless of that, he basically beat Jiri Procházka on one leg because he was limping around, getting his legs chopped out from under him with straight up leg kicks directly to the knee. And Jiri Procházka, I guess, just took it for granted that he had an injured uh, animal in front of him. That's basically what it was. And injured animals, sick animals can be dangerous, and that's exactly what happened. He ended up getting caught with right hook, I think. Yeah, or actually, I think it was actually a left hook, and took Jiri Procházka out and had him rolling around on the ground. And it didn't take long for Carlos Ulmbridge to land a couple hammer fists and have the fight stop, even though who's really the more injured fighter was definitely himself after that. So crazy. That had me like this, like saying, what WTF? Like, what the heck did I just witness there? And man, you got Carlos Ulberg, very gracious in his victory, becoming new champion, and saying that it was knee, even though it didn't look like his knee. Regardless, it was a serious leg injury of some sort. So even though he is the new champion, we had the light heavyweight bout between Carlos Ulmbridge, defeated Jiri Procházka, KO punches at the 3:45 mark of the first round. Even though we had the gracious victory by Carlos Ulmbridge, and even though we got that from him, and he is the new champion. It sucks that he has such a serious leg injury because, at least if you're going off of recent history with ACLs and Achilles injuries and things like that, they've kind of moved it to where it's almost at least football players and basketball players. You're seeing them coming back from like a just like 9 months now, which is crazy. But I don't know if mixed martial artists probably don't have quite as good of uh, a bank account check bank statement as NFL and NBA players. So I'm not sure if they get quite as good of treatment, but definitely probably won't be seeing Carlos Ulmbridge for a year now because of that. So that leaves in kind of a void, kind of in limbo. You have the light heavyweight bout, and you just had an impressive performance by Paulo Costa, and you have and you have Roundtree and Asmat Muraskanov, and or not Asmat Muraskanov, which he was what was in consideration, but Anklov, guys like that who are now looking probably for an interim championship bout. And really, for any of those guys that are up for that, I'd like to see Paulo Costa get a shot at least at a top five guy, if not for the belt after his impressive performance. Because I've always been a pretty big fan of his. And so, and just kind of the last kind of note of that fight was just kind of the moment of that fight. I guess it was after post fight. Was Jiri Procházka, and they interviewed him after that. And man, I don't really know if they should interview fighters after they've been KO'd. I understand TKO and just losing by a decision, or maybe a submission where you don't get choked out. But yeah, sometimes it's questionable whether they should interview fighters after they get KO'd, because not completely sure what kind of headspace they'll be in. But yeah, you had Jiri Procházka. Seemed like he was trying to keep it together. It looked like he was about to start crying, but it looked like he was trying to keep it together, and then just kind of trying to keep the whole ninja mentality, samurai mentality. But then he just kind of got off into like babbling about how he knew Carl Ulmbridge was injured, and he tried to show him mercy, and it came back to bite him. And it's just like, man, yeah, we all witnessed that. You don't have to tell us that. But it would have only took one shot on that glass jaw of his anyways. It just looked a whole lot worse because Carl Ulmbridge did it on one leg. But yeah, that was a little cringe to me, kind of making an excuse right there while you got the new champion getting the belt put around him by Dana White. But anyways, but that was UFC 327. Pretty good. A lot of drama. That's what people want. They want the drama. They want the blood. They want the knockouts. They want the submission. And you got every single bit of that in this card. So I felt like it was maybe going to be a while until there was a card that was going to be just as impressive, or at least somewhat impressive compared to UFC Seattle. But I think we can finally leave UFC Seattle behind now after such an impressive card and the drama and the outcomes of it. So definitely love that this past Saturday, and this was UFC 327 Procházka versus Ulberg. So one last thing, let's get into the fighter bonuses, because I'm a little upset about them, honestly. So obviously, it's the $100,000 for the fight of the night and the performance bonuses, and then any other fighter receives an additional 25,000 for finishes. Any finishes. So that kind of covers my guy in Paulo Costa a little bit. But so for the fight night, obviously it's Josh Hokett versus Curtis Blades, and then for a performance of the night, which I like the old terms, our old terminology. You had Carlos Ulmbridge with the knockout of the night, but then you got Josh Hokett on there again. When I would have preferred to seen Paul Costa on there for chopping as Matt Muraskanov down, but I guess he still got a 25,000. But I feel that was an impressive performance that a lot of people didn't expect him to win, and definitely do it in such an impressive fashion that maybe he's up next for possibly a interim light heavyweight bout. So those are the fighter bonuses. Not a whole lot of arguments or disagreement, but I've seen them hand out a whole lot more performance of the nights. I've seen them do like a fight of the night and then do like 3 or 4 performances of the night, or maybe there won't be a fight of the night and then there's like 5 performances of the night. So yeah, not a huge fan of that. And so then the next card we got coming up here is a fight night. I have to go way ahead to get into. They probably don't even have the UFC 326 completely put together, but we do have a fight night coming up this next Saturday, April 18th. And it's not, after such a great card, it's not a big surprise that not a whole lot of excitement on this card. This looks like this is going to be similar to the Ramonto, was the Moicano Duncan card. Is similar in regards to that, just because there's not a lot of name recognition, and there'll probably still be good fights and there'll be knockouts and submissions. Just it's not the most notable fighters on the cards. We just got, for the main event, it's Gilbert Burns versus Mike Malta, and then for the co-main event, it's Kyler Phillips versus Charles Jourdain, and then not a whole lot of the other names are really overly familiar. But that'll be the next UFC card we have, and maybe you see we try to bash these cards so much that they end up there's like no way they can't overperform. But anyway, so that'll be the next card this next Saturday coming up. And where is it? It's in Canada, so I imagine it's at pretty much your standard time for fight nights. Have been starting like around 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern time. But anyway, so I think that's about all I have for you this evening. So can I get a check, please?